My brother demanded I leave our parents' house, saying, "You're just a freeloader," while I quietly paid $3,500 in monthly bills. On moving day, I canceled all payments. My brother's reaction to the first unpaid bill was priceless. The sound of my brother Marcus's expensive shoes echoing through our family home's hallway had become an unwelcome weekly occurrence. Every Sunday, like clockwork, he'd show up in his designer suit, fresh from his downtown law office, to remind everyone how successful he was, and to criticize my lifestyle choices. I'm Emma Sullivan, 28, and according to my brother, I'm the family disappointment. The one who never moved out, who can't hold a real job, and who's taking advantage of mom and dad. If only he knew the truth about who really keeps this household running. Still in your pajamas at noon? Marcus's voice dripped with disdain as he found me in the kitchen, typing away on my laptop. Some of us have real jobs, you know. I didn't bother looking up from my screen, where I was in the middle of debugging code for a major tech company, one of my many remote clients. Hello to you too, Marcus. Mom and dad can't support you forever, he continued, helping himself to the coffee I'd just brewed. At some point, you need to grow up and move out. The irony of his statement almost made me laugh. Last night, I just finished paying our parents' monthly bills. $3,500 worth of utilities, property tax, insurance, and medical expenses. Not that anyone knew about it. I'd been handling it quietly for the past 3 years, ever since Dad's stroke forced him into early retirement. How are Mom and Dad doing? I asked, changing the subject. Have you visited them at Aunt Laura's? They're fine, Marcus waved dismissively. They'll be back from their weekend visit tomorrow. But don't change the subject. We need to talk about your living situation. I saved my work and finally looked up at him. At 35, Marcus was the picture of success, at least on the surface. Senior partner at his law firm, married to a social media influencer, living in a luxury downtown apartment. But I knew things weren't as perfect as they seemed. What about my living situation? Jessica and I have been talking, he said, referring to his wife. This house is too big for you to be rattling around in alone. We think it's time to sell it. I felt my blood run cold. Sell it. This is Mom and Dad's house. They can't maintain it anymore, Marcus argued. The property taxes alone must be killing them. They should downsize, move into something more manageable. And you, he pointed his coffee cup at me, need to finally stand on your own 2 feet. If he only knew that I'd been the one paying those property taxes he was so concerned about. After Dad's stroke, their savings had started dwindling fast. Medical bills, maintenance costs, and daily expenses quickly became overwhelming. Rather than watch them lose everything they'd worked for, I'd stepped in quietly without fanfare. My job as a freelance software developer meant I could work from home, keeping an eye on Dad during his recovery while earning enough to cover the household expenses. Mom and Dad thought their pension and savings were stretching further than expected. Only I knew that I was supplementing their accounts each month, making sure they never had to worry about money. The house isn't for sale, Marcus, I said firmly. Actually, he smiled, pulling out some papers from his briefcase. I've already talked to a realtor. The market's hot right now. We could get top dollar. I raised an eyebrow. This isn't your house to sell. No, but I am their son, and I have their best interests at heart. Unlike some people who just leech off their parents' generosity. That stung, even though I knew it wasn't true. I thought about the spreadsheet on my laptop, tracking every bill I'd paid, every repair I'd quietly arranged, every expense I'd covered. 3 years of supporting our family without anyone knowing, because I didn't want Mom and Dad to worry or feel indebted to me. You can't just decide to sell someone else's house, I pointed out. Watch me, Marcus smirked. Mom and Dad trust my judgment. I'm the successful one, remember? The one with the law degree and the corner office. What are you going to do? Convince them to keep this money pit so you can continue living here rent-free. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Marcus, you're making a lot of assumptions. No, I'm being practical. Mom and Dad can't afford this place anymore. They need to downsize, invest the proceeds from the sale, and set themselves up for retirement. And you, he stood up, straightening his expensive tie, need to finally grow up. As he headed for the door, he paused. I'm meeting with the realtor tomorrow. We'll start showing the house next week. I suggest you start packing. After he left, I sat in the quiet kitchen, looking around at the home I'd grown up in. The worn countertops where Mom had taught me to bake. The height marks on the doorframe tracking our growth over the years. The slight dent in the wall from when Marcus had thrown a tantrum about his first C+ in law school. Opening my laptop again, I pulled up my banking records. 3 years of transactions meticulously documented. Every utility bill, every property tax payment, every home repair. I'd even been setting aside money for a new roof, which the house would need soon. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Having a wonderful time at Aunt Laura's. Don't forget to water my plants. Love you. I smiled, getting up to check on her beloved houseplants. As I moved through the house, I couldn't help but think about Marcus's threat to sell it. He had no idea what he was about to set in motion. No idea that his freeloader sister had been the one keeping this household afloat all along. Walking into Dad's old home office, now my workspace, I looked at the family photo on the wall. It was taken right before Dad's stroke. All of us smiling, Marcus standing proudly in his new suit, Mom and Dad beaming at their children. They had no way of knowing how much things would change after that day. I sat down at my desk and opened a new document. It was time to compile some information, bank statements, payment records, everything I'd been keeping track of for the past 3 years. Marcus wanted to talk about who was really looking out for our parents' best interests. Fine, let's talk. But first, I had some calls to make. Starting with the family lawyer, who'd helped me set up the automatic payments 3 years ago. Because if Marcus thought he could just waltz in and sell our parents' house out from under them, he was about to learn a very expensive lesson about making assumptions. Little did he know, his freeloader sister was about to show him exactly who had been keeping this family's finances afloat all along. And his reaction? Well, that would be priceless. The next morning, I was ready. I'd spent half the night organizing documents, printing bank statements, and preparing for the confrontation I knew was coming. Mom and Dad were due back from Aunt Laura's by noon, and Marcus had texted to say he'd be bringing the realtor over at 2 p.m. Perfect timing. I'd just finished making coffee when I heard Mom and Dad's car in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I watched Marcus pull up in his BMW right behind them. Of course he'd come early, probably hoping to get them to sign something before I could intervene. "Emma, sweetie," Mom called out as they came through the door. "We brought you some of Aunt Laura's famous apple pie." I hurried to help Dad with their bags, noticing how the weekend trip had tired him out. Since his stroke, long journeys were still difficult, though he'd never admit it. "Here, Dad, let me get those," I said, taking the suitcases. "I'm not completely helpless," he protested, "but let me help anyway." Marcus strode in behind them, already pulling papers from his briefcase. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk about something important." "Can it wait?" Mom asked, heading for the kitchen. "I want to make some tea first." "Actually, it's better if we discuss this now," Marcus insisted, following her. "It's about the house." I caught Dad's eye and gave him a reassuring smile. "Why don't you rest in your armchair, Dad? I'll bring you some tea." In the kitchen, Marcus was already launching into his prepared speech. "The housing market is at an all-time high right now. If we list the house, we could get well above market value. I've already spoken to a realtor dash." "You've what?" Mom interrupted, looking confused. "It makes perfect sense," Marcus continued smoothly. "This place is too big for you now. The maintenance, the property taxes, the utilities, it's eating up your retirement savings. If we sell, you could get a nice condo, invest the rest, and be set for life." I walked in with my folder of documents, setting it on the counter. "Actually, Marcus, we should talk about those expenses." He shot me an irritated look. "This doesn't concern you." "Oh, but it does," I smiled, opening the folder. "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to show you." Marcus tried to continue, but I held up my hand. "Before anyone talks about selling this house, you all need to see where the money's really been coming from for the past 3 years. I pulled out the first bank statement, sliding it across the counter to Mom. "Remember when you thought your pension was stretching surprisingly far? That's because I've been supplementing it. Every month, I've been paying the property taxes, utilities, and home insurance." Mom's eyes widened as she looked at the statement. Dad had walked in just in time to hear this, and slowly sank into a kitchen chair. But how? Mom asked. I'm a software developer, Mom. I work remotely for multiple tech companies. That's what I've been doing up in Dad's old office all this time. I pulled out more statements. I make good money, really good money. And every month for the past 3 years, I've been putting $3,500 into your account to cover the bills. Marcus snatched one of the statements, his face darkening as he read it. This can't be right. It is, I continued, pulling out more documentation. After Dad's stroke, I knew you were worried about money. Rather than watch you stress about bills, I started paying them. All of them. I even set up a fund for home repairs and maintenance. Dad's voice was quiet. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want you to feel indebted to me, I explained. You gave me everything growing up. This was my way of giving back. Marcus was still shaking his head. But you're always home. You never go to an office. Welcome to the digital age, brother, I said dryly. Not all successful people wear suits and work in corner offices. I pulled out one final document, my income statement from the previous year. Marcus's eyes nearly popped out when he saw the number. That's more than I make, he stammered. I know, I said simply. I saw your firm's partnership earnings online. Mom was still processing everything. All those bills, we thought the autopay was just working from our account. Nope, that was me. I set it up through the family lawyer. Speaking of which, I turned to Marcus. He's very interested in hearing about your plans to sell a house you have no legal right to sell. Marcus's face had turned an interesting shade of red. I was just trying to help. No, I corrected him. You were making assumptions. Assumptions about me, about my career, about our parents' finances. And you were wrong about all of them. I turned back to Mom and Dad. I don't want you to worry about paying me back. Everything I did because I wanted to. Because this is our family home, and I couldn't bear to see you lose it. Dad stood up slowly, walked over, and pulled me into a hug. I felt his tears before I heard them. My brilliant girl, he whispered. We had no idea. Mom joined the hug, leaving Marcus standing awkwardly by the counter, his realtor papers forgotten. The house isn't for sale, I said firmly, looking at my brother over Mom's shoulder. And if you ever try something like this again, I'll stop being so quiet about who really supports this family. The look on Marcus's face was indeed priceless. But there was more to come, because I wasn't quite finished teaching my brother a lesson about making assumptions. The aftermath of my revelation sent shockwaves through our family dynamic. Marcus left that day without saying much, his realtor papers stuffed hastily back into his briefcase. But I knew this wasn't over. My brother had never been good at handling blows to his ego. Over the next few days, Mom and Dad tried repeatedly to pay me back, but I refused. Consider it rent, I joked. Very advanced rent. What I didn't tell them was how Marcus's attempt to sell the house had sparked an idea. I'd been saving money beyond just the household expenses, planning for contingencies. Now it was time to put that money to use. A week after the confrontation, I invited the whole family over for Sunday dinner, including Marcus and his wife Jessica. They showed up looking uncomfortable, Jessica's Instagram-ready outfit somehow seeming out of place in our homey kitchen. Before we eat, I announced, I have something to show everyone. I led them to Dad's old office, which had been quietly undergoing renovations all week. The room had been transformed into a state-of-the-art home office, with adaptive technology that would make it easier for Dad to use a computer despite his post-stroke limitations. Dad, I said softly, I know you miss working. This is for you. I've set up everything so you can consult part-time if you want to, or just keep in touch with your old colleagues. Dad's eyes welled up as he explored the setup, discovering how each piece of equipment had been carefully chosen to accommodate his needs. And Mom, I continued, leading everyone to the back of the house, remember how you always wanted a proper greenhouse? The new greenhouse gleamed in the afternoon sun, already stocked with her favorite plants. Mom's hands flew to her mouth in surprise. But this must have cost a fortune, Marcus protested. Actually, I smiled. It cost exactly what you spend on your BMW lease payments each year. Amazing what money can do when you spend it on family instead of status symbols. Jessica shifted uncomfortably, perhaps thinking of her own expensive lifestyle choices. There's more, I continued. I've set up a proper trust for Mom and Dad's long-term care. No more worrying about medical bills or home maintenance. Marcus's face had turned that interesting shade of red again. You're making me look bad, he muttered. No, Marcus, I corrected him. You did that all on your own. When was the last time you offered to help Mom and Dad with anything? When was the last time you even asked if they needed help? He had no answer for that. Over dinner, Mom and Dad shared stories about their early years in the house, before Marcus and I were born. How they'd scraped together the down payment, how every piece of furniture had been carefully chosen and saved for. We thought we'd have to sell after your father's stroke, Mom admitted. We were so worried about being a burden on you kids. You're not a burden, Marcus suddenly burst out, surprising everyone. I should have helped more. Instead of just trying to solve everything by selling the house. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from my brother. You know, I said thoughtfully, there are other ways you could help. Dad could use a good lawyer to help set up his consulting business properly. Marcus looked up, hope flickering across his face. Really, Dad smiled. Though I might not be able to afford your usual rates. Pro bono, Marcus said quickly. Family discount. Looking around the dinner table, I saw something shifting in our family dynamic. Mom was already planning what to grow in her greenhouse. Dad was explaining to Marcus his ideas for consulting. Even Jessica had put down her phone and was actually engaging in the conversation. Later that evening, as everyone was leaving, Marcus hung back. Emma, he said awkwardly, I've been an arrogant jerk. Yes, you have. I always thought success looked a certain way. Corner office, expensive suit, fancy car. Success is being able to help the people you love, I told him. Everything else is just showing off. He nodded slowly. I'm listing the BMW tomorrow. Jessica and we've been talking. Maybe we need to rethink our priorities. Good, I smiled. Because I have plans for the backyard next, and an extra pair of hands would be helpful. As I watched him walk to his car, the last time he would arrive in that particular BMW, I thought about how appearances can be deceiving. The sister he'd dismissed as a freeloader had been quietly holding everything together. The success he'd chased so aggressively had left him with status symbols but little satisfaction. Mom came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my shoulders. You know, she said thoughtfully, your father and I did something right with you. You did everything right, I corrected her. You taught me that family is worth more than money. Marcus is finally learning that too. Up in Dad's new office, I could see the computers glowing softly in the evening light. Tomorrow, I'd help him set up his email, show him how to use the adaptive software, watch him take the first steps back toward the work he loved. In Mom's greenhouse, the first seedlings were already reaching toward the sky. Like our family, they just needed the right environment to grow, the right support to thrive. And Marcus? Well, he learned that success isn't always about corner offices and expensive cars. Sometimes it's about being there for family, about quiet contributions and genuine care. Sometimes the biggest success stories are the ones that never make it to social media, the ones that play out in family homes, in greenhouses, in modified home offices where fathers can work again. As for me, I kept doing what I'd always done, working from home, paying the bills, taking care of our family. But now, without the weight of secrecy, it felt even better. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing others a better way to live. And that BMW Marcus sold? He used the money to help set up a college fund for his first child, who was, as Jessica announced at dinner the following Sunday, due in about 7 months. Turns out, some lessons about family values sink in just in time for the next generation.